Grant, thank you so much for joining Sports Seriously. I know there's a lot to talk about with you, and a lot of it is in your new book, Game and Autobiography. You have a really fascinating story from when you first broke into the spotlight all the way up to the present time now. So could you just tell me what inspires you to take a look at your life and to put it, into this book?
I think for me, which really started the whole process was the enshrinement ceremony for the Basketball Hall of Fame. That announcement, which was, I think, in March of 2018, and being a finalist, knowing you're going to be a part of that class, and then the lead up to the actual enshrinement. At that moment, I think I started to reflect, being, grateful, appreciative, so on and so forth. I think that was really like coming out of that. I thought to myself, wow, like I feel like I have a story to tell, and I want to tell it now. And so I think that ultimately started this whole process, this whole journey.
One area that I found really fascinating in your book and about your life was your savviness when it came to being an entrepreneur. These days, players are well diversified, and they've realized, it shouldn't just be about the game check. But it seemed like you were ahead of the crowd in that department. So how and when did you realize you needed to branch out into other areas beyond basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. My dad was a professional athlete, and I was old enough to remember. He played 12 years in the NFL, so I was old enough to see him retire and to see that transition that occurs, and also hearing from people he played with, contemporaries, teammates, and some of the successes and some of the failures. And so I think I went into it knowing the obvious. It was going to end at some point, and you want to be prepared. I do remember when I came out, I left college and was going to the NBA, and somebody mentioned that I'd have an opportunity to be a brand, and I didn't quite understand like what that meant. Like I know what a brand is, but I didn't equate it with an individual. And I think you fast forward to today, I think everybody thinks they're a brand.
These days, athletes can start cashing in as soon as college, with NIL now taking the sports world by storm. How would you have taken advantage of that if it was available to you, especially considering you were a household name when you played at Duke?
Yeah, I mean, it was back in the dark ages when there was no internet, and so it would have been a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, I think our team and the success we had, and the attention that was on us, I think we would have been able to benefit and probably benefit well. It's something that's interesting. Intercollegiate athletics is rapidly changing and evolving, and it's good. It's a good thing that it's happening. I'm a little nervous because it's a little bit of the wild, wild west right now. And I do think the NIL needs to have some guardrails and uniformity from state to state. But I think in theory, it's the right thing. Intercollegiate sports and college basketball, college football in particular, have really become big time businesses, and a lot of money has been involved and earned as a result. And so for players to be able to participate through NIL, I think is a really good thing.
Speaking of Duke, Paolo, he seems destined for big things in the NBA. From what you've seen so far of his game, what are some of those things that makes him special on the court? And if you're the Magic, are you taking him at number one?
Yeah, I mean, the three top guys have obviously separated themselves from the pack, and one of those three will be the number one pick. I covered Duke. Obviously, I followed Duke a lot this year, but I covered them during March Madness. And, Paolo has a great combination of size, skill, and feel. And you don't see that a lot in players. I mean, he's 6'10", 250, so that in itself is great size. And not everybody has that. So, Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, they're great players as well. They're all different in terms of what they do best and how they approach things, but they're all very talented. I think they have great careers in front of them. And since I live in Orlando and, Paolo went to Duke, I'd like to see them take Paolo Banchero, but I think they have three really good options, and it'll be interesting to see what they choose.
So Grant, we've had past Dukies do this, and we'd love for your take as well. We want to know what your all-time starting 5 Duke players be. For context, we did have Jay Williams on, and his starting 5 was Kyrie, JJU, Shane Battier, and Christian Leitner. So I'm curious what yours are.
Yeah, that's a tough one. There's so many that are deserving. I'll exclude myself from that. Okay. So I'll say Leitner. I'll say Johnny Dawkins.
Okay.
I'll put JJ. I'll put JJ Redick. He actually did very well while he was there. Jason Tatum, and was that 4? And I'll say Battier. I'll go Shane Battier.
Okay.
And this is strictly off of the players in terms of what they did while they were at Duke.
Something you spoke about a lot in your book is how you had to handle injury during your playing career. The current NBA playoffs have been full of injured players and has clearly had an effect on the outcome of games. All that said, tell us how you handled the mental aspect of being injured at pivotal times in your career and what is probably going through the head of some of these star players as they sit on the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously had a lot of, setbacks with my ankle, and it was tough. And I don't think I really dealt with it then. There's, as I say, there's the physical recovery, but there's also the mental and emotional recovery necessary. Yeah. And I think because of, how drastic and devastating and how long these injuries took to recover from, I didn't allow myself to like really feel it. Like I just kept pushing and kept moving and kept, looking ahead, and it's going to pay off. And, all this crutch walking I'm doing right now is going to make me stronger. Like it was just, I was like a robot, like a machine, and just, I'm determined to get through this. And so I didn't really deal with it or unpack it or until I started writing about it. Like that was when I really kind of addressed it. In the process of writing a book, a memoir, you go back, you reflect, you look, you live in a space, you spend a lot of time in that space. And so, yeah, it can conjure up feelings and emotions. And so, but I think I kind of like, I just do what most people do when you go through tough, not most people, but some people do when you go through tough moments, is you suppress it, or you just, you do it to survive, to get through it. And so I didn't allow myself, like I just, and I feel like I had to do that, and it may not have been the best thing, but, I certainly had to deal with it more recently, which was interesting, which I wasn't expecting.
What do you think has caused such an uptick in the injuries in the NBA? I know a lot of people want to point to the length of the regular season, but is that something that you would agree with?
Yeah, I mean, I know in recent years we've played a lot of basketball. In 2 years we've had a bubble, we've had a season, a postseason, and then another season, and now this postseason. So there's been a lot of basketball and stress that's put on players today. But it's interesting. I mean, I think if you take a look at today's environment, I mean, it's very much rest, recover, workload. There's not this pressure to play every game. Back in the 90s, I remember I was in Detroit, and, I was leading the team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, minutes, everything. And I remember one day I strained something in a game, and I sat out of practice, and my teammate Rick Mahorn was like calling me soft for not practicing. Oh. And so, and I went back, I mean, we joke or whatever, but like there was an expectation that you played. And now the pendulum has swung so far the other way that one could say we're overly cautious, and we have more sophistication and more recovery and more training and more information and all these things that maybe weren't necessarily available or used 25 years ago, but we still have a lot of injuries. And in some cases we might have more. And so I do feel the pendulum has gone a little too far and maybe needs to come back a little bit. The game is hard, and the game, is meant to be, and the season is meant to be hard, and it's meant to be difficult. And, I think we've made a lot of accommodations to make it easier. But it's almost like you take a marathon and say, okay, now because a marathon's so hard, we're gonna stop after every mile and rest and recover and resume the next day. No, a marathon was meant to be hard, and I think an NBA season is meant to be hard. And I'm not an expert. I don't have all the data, so I want to qualify by that. But I just think, as an athlete, you're in shape, you go every day, and your body's conditioned to go every day. And players today don't go every day. They don't practice as hard. They don't do back-to-backs. And so sometimes I wonder, are they in the proper condition to survive the marathon of a season that exists throughout 82 games? And so anyway, regardless, it's a different time. And I think it's something that we all need to take a look at.
Hey, sports fans, if you want to watch more sports seriously, be sure to check out these clips right here. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel to see all the great content from us here at USA Today Sports.